The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz along with my co-host Tony Palmeri. On this edition, we're very, very pleased to welcome someone who has only been on the show one time, and one time only, until tonight. Mr. Gregg Underheim is here with us this evening. And we're very honored because Gregg invited himself on the show, which not only does he not like doing things like this, but you know, you invited yourself. You did. You called Tony and asked if you could come on, and and you just did his radio show last week,
yes,
I guess,
yes.
which kind of precipitated into this here. So, but we're very pleased. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think most everybody knows you are stepping down after almost 2 decades of serving in office as a state assemblyman. You've decided to hang it up. This is your last term, and so what precipitated that move?
After a while, there are certain things you just get really tired of. You get tired of knocking on doors. You know, that's a tough chore. It's physically tough. But more than that, you get tired of asking for money. You get tired of feeling indebted to people. And it just, it drains you. And then I'm in a competitive district, and you get tired of that last month of the campaign, which is very, very stressful. And so you just, at some point, life becomes really draining.
Tired of people like us taking shots at you.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but all that's part of it. I mean, it just is it's a very stressful thing to do, and sometimes you just say, you know what, I've had enough.
Sure.
And you know what, I've had enough.
Well, you know, now some people might say, because there were a couple things that happened in the last election. I mean, number one, Gordon Hentz had 40-some% of the vote, and you had 46.9%. But then, shortly after winning that election, you decided to run for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I know some people took shots at you for that. I might have even been one of them.
Well.
But, you know, so they might say, Gregg, you know, he figured he couldn't win again. Look at all these things that happened in the last couple of years. Did that play any role in this, or no?
Well, when I ran for superintendent, I had decided at that point that I was not going to run again.
Okay.
If you look at the district, and if you look at the power of incumbency, and if you look at a lot of different factors, the likelihood is that I would have won again. It would have been a tough race. But the likelihood is I would have run again. The fact is, last time I ran a pretty lousy campaign. My direct mail was pretty bad. I didn't run a smart campaign. And I'd have to run a smart campaign. I have to craft a message more effectively. And I would have to be you know, a good candidate. I knocked on doors last time. I always knock on doors. I mean, you know I knock on doors. But I don't won. But at some point, it just gets more than you want to go through.
When you say you didn't run a smart campaign, Gregg, was that, I mean, were you starting to already get a little tired then, or were you just kind of confident that you'd win?
I expected to win.
Okay.
And I didn't think carefully about message last time. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Republicans have got to talk about things like controlling spending. They've got to talk about cutting taxes. And I frankly have never talked about that kind of stuff. I've talked about health care a great deal. I've talked about transparency. I've talked about things that are not, I've talked a lot about education. I'm certainly not on the teachers union side, but I've talked about things like phonics. I've talked about the basics. I've talked about the use of computers in classrooms as, in terms of technology to become more efficient and higher quality and frankly save money. None of those are necessarily Republican issues. And I think the Republican base has never believed that I was a real live hardcore Republican. And then I took votes on same-sex marriage. I voted against that constitutional amendment. I think there are people that didn't particularly care for that vote. So I've done some alienating of my base. For many years, my message hasn't been particularly strong. I think a lot of the good government people tend to like me. But I think the hardcore Republican base is sometimes not thrilled with me. And, you know, I think I didn't run a smart campaign.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think I run smart campaigns for a couple of times, actually.
Okay. One of the reasons why you wanted to be on the show is because we had Gordon Hentz on a few months
Yes.
ago, and you were watching, and you say he took a couple of shots at you.
Yes.
Well, what were those shots?
Okay. First, one of the things of which I am most proud of the things that I worked on is healthcare information. The state of Wisconsin right now is in among the top 5 in terms of getting good information about healthcare, getting good information about transparency, about pricing, about quality. That is a significant achievement. Now, during the course of this show, he made some comment, well, you know, you can tweak data, or he implied engage in real reform. Now, that was an incredible battle. In fact, you may remember in 1998 when I was running for re-election, the State Medical Society spent, I think, somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 taking out almost full-page color ads in Northwestern, bashing me for the work I'd done in healthcare transparency. So I clearly had stirred up some people about that. And the fact of the matter is, that bill has now, this year has now produced a bipartisan effort that the State Medical Society has bought into, that Governor Doyle has bought into, that the insurers have bought into, that the purchasers have bought into, to create a data repository that will really be a model for this country.
But doesn't it bother you that you were chair of the health committee for quite a few years? How many years were you chair of the health committee?
12 years.
For 12 years, and you're leaving office, and we probably have fewer people covered now than 12 years ago.
No, that's not accurate.
We have a high number of people in Wisconsin that are not covered.
That is completely inaccurate. We are among the lowest uninsured in the country. Now here's what's going on. Over the course of the last, ever since we did Badger Care and welfare reform, what happened was people really flooded into the Badger Care reform. It was a good health care plan. And then after a while, there is some washout from that program, and some people again drop out. So we had gotten to an extraordinarily low number of uninsured in Wisconsin. Some again now are dropping out of the Badger Care program or no longer utilizing that.
But you won't find many people in this state that are happy with the health care.
Well, wait. That's different than what you said. Your assertion was we have a high number of uninsured. If you compare us to the rest of the country, and that's the fair comparison, if you compare us to the rest of the country, we are doing extraordinarily well.
No, but I think that's.
But is that good enough?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we still have hundreds of thousands who are not insured or underinsured?
Of course not. But some of this you have to take a look at. When you look at the data on who the uninsured are, a significant chunk of the uninsured are young people who have the wherewithal to buy insurance but choose not to because they would rather spend their money doing something else. That accounts for about a third of the uninsured. Now, then you have other people who are finding the purchase of health care difficult. But for those folks, we have at least 2 programs. One is the HRSP program, which is a program for uninsurables that provides an insurance plan for them. Secondly is the Badger Care program,
which is used by Walmart employees.
Well, yes.
Largely.
Well, no. Tony,
it has been abused.
It's not,
you would agree
wait.
You agree it's been abused.
When you say used largely by Walmart employees, the implication of that statement is they
are the biggest user of the Badger Care program.
In the state of Wisconsin?
In the state of Wisconsin.
Where do you find that data?
That was the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel broke that story 2 years ago.
No, I think they argued that Walmart employees use it, but I do not believe that they are the largest user. I mean,
well, we can agree to disagree on that.
All right.
But why isn't Walmart paying their own employees health care benefits?
Talk to Walmart about that. I mean, that certainly is not something that the state of Wisconsin You're suggesting the state of Wisconsin should mandate that Walmart provide health
No,
care?
but I mean, you said that Hentz took a shot at you because he said the transparency wasn't real reform.
Right.
Don't you think real reform would have been something like making sure Badger Care gets used by who it was designed for and not by Fortune 500 companies that could probably afford to pay their employees
The real
healthcare
reform,
benefits?
the real reform was Badger Care. That was a significant program that expanded insurance for a whole lot of people, and not just kids, families.
Right.
One of the problems of health insurance reform in other states was that they were targeted for kids, but excluded parents. Badger Care made the program available to both kids and parents. That was a significant reform. Now,
That was
it's
Tommy
not,
Thompson's idea, right?
Right.
Badger Care?
Now, it's not the fault of the state of Wisconsin that Walmart employees are using the Badger Care. Are you suggesting that we lower income limits? I mean, you're complaining about this problem. Give me a solution to the problem. Are you suggesting we mandate that Walmart provide health care?
Maryland tried that. And then of course the court said that they couldn't do it.
Okay.
But that was one court. Doesn't follow that all courts would do that. Why not? Why doesn't the state legislature say, we've got a Fortune 500 company, the biggest corporation in the world, you can afford to pay your employees health care benefits. Let a court try and strike it down. Why not?
Okay, so I'm just to make sure.
Why
we're
would
knowing-
why?
Because it stifles economic development. Now, are you saying that we should apply that to everybody or just Walmart?
Any company that can afford to pay its employees health benefits should pay them.
How do you define can afford to?
I think Fortune 500 would be one criterion.
There are Fortune 500 companies that are losing money. Airlines, for example, are losing money. Being in the Fortune 500 does not guarantee that you're making money.
Well, but you can't sit here, Greg, and tell us that we're going to destroy the Wisconsin economy if we tell Walmart that they have to pay their own health care.
Here's what I can tell you. Well, no.
Yeah.
Okay. You sit here and make incredibly broad generalizations about, well, make Walmart do it. All right. Then I ask you a really serious public policy question, which is, all right, what are the criteria that we should establish for a business to be forced to pay? And your response is, well, Fortune 500 company.
That's one criteria. That could be one criteria.
But that's not a serious public policy answer. That's off the top of your head sort of a flippant, well,
Why isn't that serious?
Well, why not,
Because
why not
of
look
Fortune.
at their P&L statement?
okay, a Fortune 500 company, again, doesn't guarantee that they're making a profit, doesn't guarantee they have the wherewithal to go ahead and do
Okay,
that.
so then it sounds like then you do believe in corporate welfare. That we should get rid of welfare for single women. They have to go out and work. But if Walmart says, give us welfare, pay health benefits, we should do it. I'm glad you finally admit tonight you do believe in corporate welfare, not welfare for single mothers. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get away with that outrageous characterization of my position.
That's what you just said.
No, it's not. Okay, first off, Walmart isn't getting health care. People who work for Walmart are getting health
Right,
care.
exactly.
You're suggesting that in some way Walmart is getting health care. They're not.
But
People who work for
I feel
them.
like I should have worn a striped shirt
Yeah.
with a whistle around
Yeah.
my neck tonight.
Okay, okay. No. It's good that people understand how wrong Tony is on some of this stuff.
No, but I do see where he's going, Greg. I mean, I understand your point, but it is corporate welfare in a sense because they're able to save money
Sure.
that they would be putting into health care.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Where is that money going?
We don't know.
Yes, we do. We absolutely know where that money's going.
CEO's pockets?
They're a publicly held corporation. All the information about them is publicly available.
Oh, okay.
The
So it's
answer
going
is
into the Walton family's pockets.
a portion of it, perhaps, but the rest of it's going. Okay, and through what mechanism? The answer is through dividends and stock. Everybody who owns stock in Walmart is benefiting from their cost effectiveness. Everybody who purchases at Walmart is benefiting from the pricing structures that they have. Now, your position is we need to force them to make expenditures covering health care. Walmart would argue that they do provide health care benefits of a significant magnitude to their employees. I don't know what that is. My guess is you don't know either. You're asserting right here that they barely give health care to anyone. Do you know how much health care they provide to anyone?
No, but we know that
Right.
they're getting a good deal, not just from Wisconsin, but from other states.
Oh, wait, Walmart isn't getting a good deal. The people who work for Walmart are getting a good deal. The people who buy at Walmart are getting a good deal. That's who's getting a good deal. Walmart isn't getting a good deal. I mean, we have a program that's benefiting people that work. You seem to be saying if you work at Walmart, somehow there should be a different criteria established for you. Somehow your employer should be treated differently than every other employer in the state of Wisconsin because
Well,
we don't like you.
It seems to me that if Walmart really cared about the state of Wisconsin, or
They're-
any state in which they operated, they know the kind of budget crises all these states are in. Walmart is the most profitable corporation in the world. Maybe just as a gesture of thanks for being allowed to operate in the state, they'd say, you know what, we'll pick up our employee health care costs. Is that too much to ask of a company like Walmart?
Walmart's obligation is not to care about the state of Wisconsin.
Well, obviously.
No, it's, well, all right, is it the obligation of a university professor to care about the state of Wisconsin and recognize the budget crunch that Wisconsin's in? Is it their job to say, you know what, I really care about the state of Wisconsin because they're my employer, and I'm going to say, you know what, no increase for me. Is that their
To
responsibility?
equate one individual with a Fortune 500
I'm
company,
looking
I
at
think
all the faculty. Do you think that's their obligation?
I think we should
I
care about our
don't.
state, yeah.
I don't think it's the university's obligation or the faculty's obligation to say that. You're implying that Walmart has an obligation to the state of Wisconsin. They don't. They have an obligation to their shareholders.
No.
The people that own Walmart bought Walmart because they expected to receive a profit on their investment.
What I'm implying,
That is their moral obligation.
What I'm implying is that you and other legislators in the 90s had no problem telling single mothers, you don't deserve a dime from us until you go out and work. Even if you've got a 3-month-old kid at home, you go work. You had no problem telling that. But to tell Walmart, chip in your fair share, you have problems with that. That's okay.
Wrong. I do think it is correct that people should be expected to work. But in terms of saying to Walmart, chip in your own fair share, your basic assumption is that providing a job and providing customers with low prices and providing shareholders with a return on their investment somehow is morally insufficient.
No.
It is not.
When you guys passed the Badger Care program, we thought, lots of people thought, it was going to be mostly for poor families, poor children. I'm sure you didn't think when you passed the Badger Care it was going to be for Walmart employees. You probably were thinking, oh, especially if you're a full-time worker at Walmart, Walmart is chipping in for the health care. You must have thought that, right? You couldn't have thought it was going to be a Walmart program.
You are correct to assert that I was not thinking of Walmart employees when that program came about. That's correct. But I want to go back to one of the statements you made previously, one of these terribly prejudicial statements that you've been making that needs to be addressed.
Okay, sure.
All right. I mean, Wisconsin and the public in general had it right on welfare. The problem is this. Everybody in their lives at some place or at some point decides to take the path of least resistance. In my life, in some places, I take the path of least resistance. I'm sure there are places in your life that you take the path of least resistance. The problem is that in Wisconsin, the path of least resistance was into welfare. There was health care, there was child care, there was a stipend, and the path of least resistance was into welfare. And the fact of the matter is, that is a terribly unproductive life. It provides, at the end of the day, no job, no skill, no hope. To find a way out of that is the right public policy choice, and it's good for human beings.
Everyone agreed the old system was broken. Everyone knew the system was broken.
So
But
you
the
have
issue
to-
is whether W-2, the reform, has actually improved the situation or made it worse.
If you look at the statistics, it's improved it. Because we've done the right thing. We have made the path of least resistance the path into work, and the path of greater resistance the path into welfare. That is the right public policy choice.
No, we've done nothing to really put a significant dent in poverty in the state.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. First off, if you take a look at poverty, I mean, those statistics are so grotesquely misrepresented.
Yeah, because there actually are more poor people than the statistics represent. In order to be
No.
declared poor in this country,
Wait.
What is it?
Wait,
$18,000 for a family of four?
Here's
you
how
have to
they're-
be dirt poor to be declared
Here's
poor.
how they are
We'll get you back
grotesquely.
in the show.
Here's how they are grotesquely misrepresented. When you make the statements about welfare, the assumption behind your statements and what you're projecting to the audience those dozens of people who are currently watching us, when you're making those statements, you're implying that it's always the same people in poverty. It isn't. The individual people in poverty turns over. Some people get into poverty. For example, if you lose your job for a year and you have no income, you are classified as in poverty. And if you get a job again, then you're out of poverty the next year. And the specific people in poverty are not the same people on a year after year basis. There is probably a small cadre of people who remain unemployed, dirt poor. They probably have few or no skills. They probably lack education. Some of them maybe have children out of wedlock, but there is a small cadre of people that remains there. The rest of the poor, as you refer to them, constantly are rolling over. And you're implying that there's this big mass of people who've been unaffected by welfare reform. That's not true. For the most part, poverty is a very sort of rolling phenomena, and people get out of it. Occasionally they fall back into it, but they get out of it.
No, the problem with W-2 is that it wasn't based on any kind of job strategy or education strategy.
That's not true.
It's not. There's
a training component. There's a very good training component and education component in W-2.
If you were to look at poverty in Winnebago County in 2006 compared to when you first got into the legislature in 1987, 88,
87.
It's worse now. Poverty is worse now in Winnebago County. Talk to anybody who runs the shelters, and they'll tell you that especially in wintertime, it is worse now than it's ever been. They now have entire families looking for help. It used to be just, largely men who were looking for help. It's now entire families looking for help. How'd that happen?
I don't know. But I'll tell you this. The individuals who are part of poverty roll over. It is not, on a year after year basis, the same people, which means that something is working. Because when people have those tragic episodes of poverty in their lives, or tragic job loss, or other problems, they fall into poverty, then they find the way to step back out. It's not the same people. And the critique that you are laying on the table here implies that it's the same people year after year, and we haven't managed to solve the problem for those people. That's not true.
All right, Cheryl, why don't we get you in here?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Well, talking about solving problems for other people, Badger Care and HRSP. Okay, Badger Care only covers people with children.
Yes, that's correct.
So couples who have no children or single individuals can't get coverage there if they need it.
That's correct.
HRSP is a program that covers you if you can't get insurance elsewhere.
That's correct.
The premiums are ungodly high.
They're very high.
And the deductible...
But there's also a subsidy.
A subsidy.
You can get a subsidy for HRSP.
Okay.
You have to be low income to get it, but there's a subsidy available.
But the premiums are very high, and the problem that I've seen with HRSP is that they only apply a certain percentage against your deductible, and it is the percentage that Medicare would pay. And so at that rate, it's almost, unless you just have massive health issues, it's almost impossible to ever reach the deductible. Why is it set up that way?
I didn't follow your question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The deductible, say
Right.
you have a $1,500 deductible.
Okay.
But they only apply toward that HRSP, the administrators, they're only applying toward the deductible a percentage of what, say you've got a $1,000 test of some kind,
Okay.
an MRI or ultrasound,
Okay.
whatever.
Oh, and so they only give you a percentage of $1,000 to apply against
They
deductible.
only apply a certain percentage of that. They don't apply the whole $1,000 against the deductible. It's only a percentage. And they base that percentage on only what Medicare would allow.
Okay.
So at that rate, like I said, unless you've got some massive medical problems, or you have an occurrence where there's just a ton of tests and bills being racked up, you don't ever reach that deductible. And so not only are you paying these really high premiums every month, but you're having to pay these bills too that aren't being covered because you're never reaching your deductible. So what can be done here to help these people who are falling through the cracks in both places?
Certainly, I think subsidy is the right answer. Now, I think another right answer is catastrophic health care plans that are, like HSAs, that are less expensive, but that allow a tax-deductible contribution into a savings account portion. So what happens is the catastrophic, or at some point, your catastrophic insurance kicks in. Then in the savings account portion of your HSA, you're allowed to pay your deductibles and your copays from that. Now, some people are going to say, where do you get the money to pay for the savings account portion? In many cases, the employer puts that in. If you're self-employed or if you're unemployed for a period of time, you're on the hook to put that portion in yourself. It's tax deductible. If you're not employed, that does you a great deal of help at that specific moment. But the catastrophic portion of that plan is reasonably priced. So there are tools out there that give people greater options. And I mean, yes, there are problems, but I mean, you have to work through them one at a time, or you go to the other option, which is government runs the whole healthcare system. And I think that turns out to be a very, very bad option.
Do you see that ever happening, even though you wouldn't personally support that?
I don't. When I was first elected back in '87, the Canadian healthcare system was that was the thing. And everybody's talking about Canada. When's the last time you've heard a lot about Canada now? Think about it.
It has to do with prescription drugs.
Right. That's what you hear about Canada. And I'm fine with going to Canada for prescription drugs, by the way. I have no problem with that. But in terms of their healthcare system being the gem that's the model, nobody's talking about that anymore.
Well, they certainly wouldn't take our system. They're not going to trade their system for ours.
Well, they certainly use our system to prop their system up. Right now, there are hospitals in Fargo, in North, I think it's Minot, North Dakota, which is just south of Canada, which are doing extremely well.
But you do acknowledge the only reason we don't have a national health care program is because of insurance industry and pharmaceutical lobbying, right?
No.
Those interests.
No, no.
You can't sit here and tell us that the average person in America doesn't want guaranteed health care.
We don't have a government health care system because it would be a disaster. That's why we don't have it.
Has Social Security been a disaster?
Social Security is nothing more than a transfer payment system. That's not
Medicare a disaster?
Yes, Medicare is a real problem. Medicare has been it's high cost, as is Medicaid. And when you take a look at
right,
exactly, it's a very when you take a look at the federal budget.
But would it be better if we threw the seniors into a private system?
Of course not. You're arguing that this is a wonderful thing. The fact is it's high cost. I'm not suggesting we should get rid of it, but you're suggesting it has been a wonderful thing all around and you're ignoring the problems. The problems are cost. And when you take and when you talk to seniors too, they're feeling that they're being sort of pushed into some of these plans that are putting constraints on them that they didn't have. There isn't great joy in the senior citizen population right now about what's going on. And that is a government-run healthcare system. And it's beginning to restrict choice. It's beginning to limit doctor options. I mean, in places like Great Britain, right now, if you're 65 and you got a bad heart, you got a bad heart. That's the way it is. Here's what happens to government-run healthcare systems. Oh, and let me bring this back to...
They generally have much, much lower administrative costs. I mean, the problem with our system right now is the administrative costs.
That's just nonsense.
They're skyrocketing.
That's just
But
nonsense.
HMOs and PPOs limit healthcare options too.
Yes, they do.
And people have complaints left and right over those.
I'm certainly not arguing they don't. But if you take a look at what happens to the government-run healthcare systems, which is, by the way, where Hentz wants to go. He wants to go to the government-run healthcare systems. He won't admit that to you. But if you force him to confront what he says, that's exactly where he gets.
That's really what the majority of people want.
Oh, I don't.
The majority of people
true.
do not want this madness we have right now.
Okay, wait.
They don't want it.
There's a difference between the madness. Okay, you are so good at that. You're so good at saying this is madness. The government needs to do it all. No, that's not what you call a logical conclusion. There may be madness here,
Greg,
but that does not lead
Greg,
us to the government
Greg,
should do it.
we are the only, I believe we are the only industrialized country in the world
Well,
that does not have a guaranteed health care plan.
Let's
This is the
take-
only country in the world where you have to worry about
Tony,
possibly not getting medical care.
let's take
and
a
we're the
look-
richest country in the world. It's insane.
Let's take a look at what's happening to the healthcare systems in those countries. If you take a look around the world, there are enormous waiting lists to get healthcare services. The government is deciding which afflictions will get served at what point. In Canada, here's what they're doing right now. They are assigning numerical values to your affliction. And then if your doctor is really good at coming up with a numerical value for it that puts you higher up, you can get in sooner. But this government has then decided, okay, people with this numerical value have to get in within 3 days. And this numerical value gets 3 weeks, and this numerical value is 6 months, and this numerical value is, well,
But yet-
we'll get,
okay.
Well, but at
Tony,
least,
listen,
but at
listen,
least
Tony.
they know that they're going to get
But
somehow.
listen,
Tony.
but no, you and the Republicans
Wait,
keep, no, let me.
let me finish the argument.
Okay.
Let me finish the rest of the problem.
All right.
Here's what else government does. There are two terrible flaws to government. They want to make everybody happy. They want to give as much benefits to people as they can, and they don't want to tax to do it. And here's what happens. In all these places, there are waiting lists because the government mandates a wide array of services, and then it refuses to charge premiums in order to pay for them. So it takes out of the general tax collection. Now it's not willing to tax high enough to pay for the health care benefits that it wants to provide. So what happens is insufficient dollars are put into healthcare systems and they begin to rot from the inside because they cannot be funded. That's what's happening all of these places. Maybe with the possible exception of Cuba, he said sarcastically.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem.
Okay.
You and the rest of the Republicans, and even the Democrats now, say we have to make sure that we do good for business. Business in this country, whether it is Walmart, the largest, or whether it is the mom and pop store on Main Street, are all saying the same thing. Take the healthcare burden off of us. That would be good for business. General Motors is saying that. So if the Republicans especially really believe in taking care of business, the thriving economy, isn't it time to listen to them?
Okay.
Take the
Now-
healthcare burden off of them.
Now, this is Mr. Corporate Welfare is a horrible thing. Is that correct?
Well, we wouldn't be
so
doing
we're
it.
coming from the position initially of corporate welfare is a bad thing to the position of the state or the government should provide all the health care to take the burden off the public.
No, because
there's
the way,
an intellectual
no,
inconsistency.
No, it's
in
not.
that.
Because
yes,
the way,
there is.
no, the way we're doing it now, you're only benefiting certain corporations or certain businesses, like Walmart. The mom and pop store down the block is not benefiting from Badger Care. Walmart is.
Wait a minute. It depends on the income that the mom and pop
Well, it's
store
true.
is
Right,
making
right.
and the employees that work there.
But wouldn't it
if the
make-
employees that
wouldn't-
work there qualify for Badger
Why
Care, they get
can't
it.
why can't the politicians?
The statement you, wait a minute.
Listen.
The statement you just made isn't
No,
true.
what I'm saying is, why can't the politicians get over their fear of pharmaceuticals and private insurance, do the right thing, take this healthcare burden off of private businesses and of individuals?
Okay.
Every other industrialized
Tony.
country in the world has done this.
Here's why you're
We can't do it.
Here's why you are so galling. It's because you
Only
sit
one
here-
reason.
Okay, yeah, okay. Here's
Yeah.
one of the many reasons why
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
so
yeah,
galling.
okay.
All right. You sit there and say, why can't we do the right thing and have government run it all?
Yeah.
Because some people do not think, who honestly do not believe having government run it all is the right thing.
Well-
because
Yeah.
I mean, I described what happens when government runs healthcare systems.
Every-
and the evidence
listen.
is
Yes.
worldwide.
Every argument you're making was made against Social Security, was made against Medicare, was made
That's
against
not
Medicaid.
true.
You will not find anyone these days that wants to get rid of those programs. Well, except maybe the guy in the White House today.
Well,
But
I think there's a rational argument to be made for future Social Security benefits to be accounts owned by people. I think that's a rational argument that serious public policymakers have got to consider.
Well, what was the other thing that Hentz said? Let's get to the other thing. You said you wanted to respond. What was the other thing that Hentz said that outraged
all
you?
right, so my point was, he said that my efforts on data were just like a tweet.
Okay, we got that.
He
But what's the
went,
second thing?
yeah, please,
Right.
please.
Okay.
He belittled what I think is serious, important, significant work that I am terribly proud of. I fought. There were political fights. I risked my political career on that stuff, and the doctors came after me, and you knew it. They tried to beat me that race. I mean, you saw that race. You were here.
1998, yeah.
Right, exactly correct. And you can be proud that you still got a larger percentage than Polly did in that race, even though the doctors spent $15,000 coming after me that race. But it annoys me greatly that he belittled what was serious, politically dangerous, intellectually superior work. That really gripes me. I think it says something about him. Number two. Okay.
Gee, maybe he needs some mental health. So what happened to mental? Maybe he needs mental treatment. So what happened to mental health parity? You shut that down, didn't you?
I do not want to associate. I do not want to associate myself with Tony Palmeri's comments that Gordon Hentz needs mental health services.
But you're suggesting that
I am not the person. Tony Palmeri has suggested that Gordon maybe needs mental health services.
You're suggesting that people who would make these critiques of you are either egomaniacs, irresponsible.
I said
so maybe they have
2 points.
All right. What about mental health parity? You spent years. Okay, but you did
get to the second point.
Yes.
Get to the second point.
But first, you will admit to us that you spent years not even allowing mental health parity to come up for a vote?
I had a hearing on it, but it did not come through the Health
Okay.
Committee.
Do you now admit that you're leaving office now and the pharmaceuticals are no longer a threat to you and insurance? Can you now admit that we do need mental health parity?
No.
We don't need mental health parity.
That is all right. Let me get to this point. Then I'll get back to that point.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Secondly, my second annoyance was this: during the discussion of the same-sex marriage amendment and the Tabor amendment, he made the comment that you can't possibly be in favor of one and against the other. I mean, that statement was so intellectually vapid that it appalls me that he got away with that, frankly, on your show. All right. In one instance, Tabor limits the size and scope of government. That is a very legitimate constitutional amendment or constitutional provision.
Okay.
The same-sex marriage amendment limits people. Constitutions don't do that. They limit government. So to be against one that limits people and to be for one that limits government is entirely intellectually serious, right, and reasonable. And to just sort of toss off that comment as, well, you can't possibly be against one and for the other.
Well, they both are examples of trying to amend the Constitution for ideological reasons, correct?
Well, let me think about it.
Yes, you've got people who, for whatever reason, don't like gays and lesbians, and so they want to amend the Constitution for their purposes. You've got other people who just don't like government, think you can't do anything right, and they want to amend it with Tabor.
No, that's not. You're correct on Tabor. You're not correct on same-sex marriage. The same-sex marriage stuff in Wisconsin came about after the Massachusetts Supreme Court found a right. Found a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. I said this on your radio show, I'll say it again. Do you honestly believe that when the founders of Massachusetts were sitting around, they were saying to themselves, now, wait a minute here, do we need to include a provision on same-sex marriage here, or will people just basically get that that's an implied constitutional right? Of course they weren't. They had no intention of having a provision protecting same-sex marriage in their Constitution.
They had no intention of slaves being free.
What? So my point is, to find a right to same-sex marriage in a Constitution then provoked people who, I voted against this, I think it's a bad idea. But the finding of that right as a constitutional right provoked a number of people to say, look, this could happen in Wisconsin, and quite frankly, with the makeup of the court, it could. This could happen in Wisconsin. Let's make sure that nobody abuses the Constitution in that way. And the left certainly has been guilty of abusing the Constitution in terms of finding constitutional rights where none existed. Now, I think the right is trying to abuse the Constitution in passing the constitutional amendment.
So that's why you're opposed to it?
Yes.
So you're urging Republicans to vote no on the marriage amendment?
Yes. Here's what I'm saying. I am voting for Mark Green this upcoming election. I am voting for J.B. Van Hollen this upcoming election. I am voting for Julie Leschke and Barry Busby, and if I could vote for Mike Ellis, he's
Robert
up. I'd vote
Gerald
for him
Lorch
too.
for U.S.
Well, I am a
or
Republican.
Ray Vogler, the Green.
I am a
You can afford to vote for Ray Vogler in that race, right?
Do you think so?
Sure.
Do you think Republicans should go out and vote for Vogler?
Well, I mean, Republicans don't feel good about Lorch, right? They don't like Lorch.
Well, I
He's
wouldn't.
had some really bad accusations made against
Okay.
him.
I wouldn't say Republicans don't feel good about him, but I might think it.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting act on their part.
You might feel so guilty after voting for Green and some others that Ray Vogler will be Vogler might be the way to ease your conscience down the ticket.
See, you interrupted me. You're about to get a point from me that you wanted, and then you interrupted me.
I'm sorry.
Okay, there is the art of communication. Are you familiar with communication skills?
Somewhat.
Okay, there's the art of speaking and the art of listening. Now, okay, I want to encourage you to practice the latter here.
Continue on. We're listening. We're all ears.
Thank you very much. All right, back to my point. I'm a Republican.
Yes.
I'm voting for Green. I'm voting for Van Hollen. I'm voting for Julie Leschke. And I'm voting against the same-sex constitutional marriage amendment. And I think you can be a good Republican and do that. And I hope many people vote for Mark Green and vote for J.B. Van Hollen and vote for Julie Leschke and vote against the amendment, because I think it's a mistake constitutionally.
Okay.
But I do think it's not just a bunch of Republican bozos who put that out there. I think there is a serious constitutional amendment. I think there's a serious constitutional argument in terms of why it's a rational thing to do. But I think that argument does not win the day.
You took a lot of flack on the Winnebago County Board recently.
I shouldn't have. I'm right.
You did, because they
Who gave me flack on that?
Well, I'll listen. You just said you're
Well, before you jump into that, we were talking about the state referendum on gay marriage.
Okay.
There's another referendum coming up, though, and that's
Yes.
on the death penalty issue.
Sure.
Where do you stand on that?
I voted to put it on the ballot,
Okay.
so I'm part of why it's there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Very good.
Now, you've got this bill through, and the governor signed it, that allows counties
Good piece of public
once every
policy.
10 years
Yes.
before the census
Right.
to reduce the size of the board.
Yes.
Problem is, the legislation was so badly written that it is allowing county boards like Winnebago counties to short circuit the city. I mean, your intention clearly was to allow citizen groups to get a referendum in place. John Bodner, he said it on the floor of the county. This legislation was so badly written that it allows this county to do it. Even people who I'm sure, even people who support your position that the board should be reduced said the same thing. The language in that state legislation was not good language. It needs to be revisited. So what was happening? Did you not read the language closely enough?
No, we read the language perfectly fine. Here's the problem. At some point, you have to believe that there's goodwill on the part. I mean, if you wonder why government shouldn't run health care, this is the perfect example. Because you've got all these people sitting in positions of government who are doing nothing but look out for their own interests. The county board is a great part-time job. Nobody faces an opponent. You get to go to the meetings and you pick up 20, 40, or I forget how much it is.
3 incumbents lost their seats last time. How can you say no one faces?
How many
faces an
races
opponent?
were there?
Well, you said nobody. You were
Okay. All right.
exaggerating.
Okay.
Okay.
You're right. You were listening very well. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Yes, 3 people lost their jobs, but out of 38, that's 35 probably ran unopposed.
How many lose their job in the state legislature?
I
The
don't
same
know.
argument you make about
But how
reducing
many
the size
people
of the county
are,
board.
how many are unopposed?
Lots. Lots are unopposed.
Okay, and the county
many-
90% of the county board is unopposed. Or okay, what's 3 out of 38? Better than 90% is unopposed.
So the solution to that is to eliminate the seats?
Well, no, wait. I mean, there you go again. That's not what the legislation does. The legislation doesn't eliminate the seats.
It allows people to
It
put a
allows.
process forward to reduce
Aren't you the democracy guy?
I don't have any problem with the referendum.
Right, exactly.
Right.
The legislation just says if people want to do this,
Yeah, but what I'm
Here's
saying,
a process
but what
for
I'm
which they
saying
can
is
do it.
because you did not write the legislation.
don't you ever? I mean,
Listen.
don't you ever call him on this stuff?
In hindsight, if you had known that legislative language, as written, would allow those 38 supervisors to do what they did a couple of weeks, reduce their size to 36, you wouldn't have passed that language. You would have passed language that would have said, and the board itself cannot reduce in that 10-year period. Only citizens can. You said something like that.
Do you know why that language was there? Because Governor Doyle, your argument is with Governor Jim Doyle. Let me do it. Your argument was with Governor Jim Doyle. He said, sticking his finger in Tony Palmeri's chest. 2 years, or the previous session of the legislature, we passed that. We passed that bill. We passed the bill that you wanted to see passed. We passed the bill. Doyle vetoed it. So we put that language in because Doyle was all concerned about the county boards, and he signed it then. But that was the original bill that we passed and was vetoed.
So you gave in on.
Well, I mean, Tony, they're okay.
So what you allowed happen is much, much worse.
Well,
if you were worried about self-preservation, you now have guaranteed self-preservation of the county board members.
Okay, the county board may be reduced by 2 seats. There'll be another election. But my belief was, how could people be so incredibly self-serving so as to, I mean, will you not acknowledge that act by the county board was one of the most self-serving, outrageous acts in defiance of democracy you've ever seen?
It was a bad act. I would have allowed a citizen group to try and get 4,000 signatures and having a debate about the size of the board. I would have done that.
Right.
But having said that, the people who voted against having that go forward and they voted to reduce it by 2, they thought that this Progress Oshkosh had its own special interest agenda, that it's not a broad citizens group. I don't support that point of view, but that's what they thought.
Well, okay.
Right?
I don't. If they can get the signatures,
right,
they deserve the referendum.
But it sounds like you, in order just to get a bill through and get Doyle to sign it, you agreed to allow bad language to go into place.
Well,
that allowed this to happen.
You do have to believe that elected leaders will at some point forego their own self-interest and act in the public interest. You have to believe that's going to happen. Because if you don't believe that, the very foundation of representative democracy is destroyed. Now, I got to say about the Winnebago County Board, they have certainly undermined that belief in this county. I think they have violated a very important principle, and I would not have predicted that they would have gone out and done that. I think it is an outrageous act. But
wasn't that hypocritical coming from a member of the state legislature?
No, we never do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, actually, not of that sort. We don't. I mean, that is the
But in
most
terms
outrageous
of the
act.
issue of there being too many representatives, I mean, it's widely known now that in Madison, the governor, the majority leader of the Senate, the Speaker of the Assembly, that's where all the power is. So why do we need 99 members of the legislature now? By your argument, let's cut the legislature in half. Let's have a referendum. Why not have a referendum to allow people to cut the state legislature from 99 to, say, 40?
Maybe that should be one of the...
Or 45.
Maybe that should be one of the... well, technically, it would be, I think...
Would you support that?
Would you support... 49 and a half.
Okay. Who would be the half? I'd want to know.
It'd be an interesting part-time job.
Would you support allowing the citizens of Wisconsin by referendum to reduce the size of the state legislature from 99 to, say, 45 or 50?
See, I'm not going to be there now. No. And here's why not. I mean, you're throwing this at me as a counterpoint to what happened here in Winnebago County. Have you seriously heard anybody in the state of Wisconsin say we need to lower the size of the legislature?
I've heard people say we should get rid of it.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
There you go again.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, give me Tony.
You must
give me the serious answer.
No, you must know that the credibility of the legislature right now is at its lowest point since probably the 19th century. 4 of your colleagues are in jail.
Okay, how exactly does this relate to lowering the size of the county board?
Because you're saying that we have these self-serving county board members.
Right.
So therefore we need the citizens to go in and reduce the size.
Tony.
We have a self-serving state legislature.
Okay, Tony, it's important to listen to this point. The reason that bill was written was because my constituents, people I represented, wanted to be able to lower the size of the county board. They came to me and said, Gregg, this is a good thing because those people over there at the courthouse are unresponsive.
Okay.
So I said, you know what? I will work on that piece of legislation because you brought it to me and I happen to think it's not a bad idea.
So when your
Nobody,
citizens-
wait,
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Yes, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, all right. Nobody, with the exception of you at this table right now, and a couple of disgruntled county board members, when they saw the legislation was out there, has come to me and said, Greg, we need to lower the size of the legislature. No one has raised that issue with me. If that were an issue of significant importance in the state of Wisconsin, and I believe the public was just rabid to lower the size of the legislature, as they were rabid to have a chance to lower the size of the Winnebago County Board,
Right.
I would be willing to consider it.
Okay, so
But
when
I
your-
haven't heard
So
that.
when your constituents came to you asking for mental health parity legislation, why didn't you listen to those constituents?
Because
How
they
did you
were-
decide which
because they were
constituents to listen to?
Because on the public policy, they were wrong. First off, mental health parity is misnamed. It is not parity. Parity means equality. If you break your arm, and let's assume for a moment that we're a same-sex couple covered by health care benefits, okay? If you break your arm, I don't get a cast as well. In the issue of mental health benefits, if you have mental health issues, and I am your partner, and I am covered by your insurance, I then can get counseling as well for your affliction. It's not parity. It's in fact benefits of a much greater sort, and it gripes me no end that people misname this and call it parity. They don't want parity. Let me give you another example. There was a bill went through the legislature, this session of the legislature, concerning medical records. The mental health people were banging at our door, and they won. They want mental health records treated very differently than physical health records. They don't want parity. They want different treatment under the law.
Well, you know-
and I don't favor that.
Okay, here's the problem. Wisconsin used to be a leader on these issues. We're no longer a leader. We have 20, 25 states that have passed this kind of legislation because they recognize that mental health finally is losing its stigma. People need Cheryl's just hanging out.
Just sitting back, taking note.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. We'll get Cheryl back in here.
Well,
But I'm having a good time at least. It's not just
wonderful.
not
It's wonderful.
It's not just a, how do you defend such and such?
But no, going back to the issue with the county board,
Okay.
I mean, I too think it was really lousy what the county
Yeah.
board did. And so I think we can all agree on that. Now, CUT, the little offshoot of Progress Oshkosh, is looking at perhaps a lawsuit against the county. Mark Harris, the county executive, has said he's not going to veto the decision,
Bad call on his part.
and he says not.
know.
Why do you feel that he should veto that?
Because it was such an outrageous act. I mean, I don't understand his rationale for not vetoing that. What is his rationale?
I didn't understand
Because,
it either.
because the law allows them to do what they did.
Right.
If he vetoed it, it would be just because of political disagreement. You shouldn't veto something.
It would
What-
be because of policy disagreement.
No, what they did.
Harris is stating, all right, by your rationale, Harris is stating, I believe the county board should be at 38.
No, he's not saying that.
Yes, he is.
He's saying
Well, as a
that.
matter of fact, he said that he feels it should be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But he felt that, whatever, he's not going to veto it. I don't
Well,
know why
20
he made the decision that he made.
25 was sort of on the table.
Right.
Vetoing that resolution means 25 is now off the table. I don't know. I mean, I'm not hooked up with a group that's involved.
I
with,
think if he vetoed it, he'd be grandstanding, and I think it's to his credit he's avoiding grandstanding. Because the
it is
easiest thing
not.
in the world for him to do would be to say, "Look at me, Mark Harris vetoing this. I want a smaller county board." And I think it's to his credit he's avoiding that grandstanding.
I think
unlike
you're
some of
wrong.
the other politicians on the board.
Well, I think that if ever there was a time for a veto, I think that this would be one of them. I really do. I mean, what they did was terrible. They basically did an end run around this group so that they could say, we lowered the county board number, look at this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they thumbed their
Tony.
nose at the group.
Me and Cheryl think that.
We don't often agree, right?
Greg, as you know, in Oshkosh, we're tearing ourselves apart over a garbage fee
Yes.
and whether we should go over the tax levy. Do you ever, at night or any time, feel any guilt over this because you voted for budgets that are putting us in this position?
Not a whit. I mean, the fact that Tony.
Come on, isn't the problem
Tony.
coming out of Madison?
All right,
You guys
Tony.
have voted for budgets that are killing municipalities.
Tony, All right, let's take a look at where we are and how we got there. In the state of Wisconsin,
We don't have that much time left, so.
All right, the state of Wisconsin is a high tax state.
And we've historically had low fees, as you know.
But
so
we're
now our
still-
fees are going to skyrocket.
But we're still a high tax state, and when you take a look at economic development and the need to create good paying jobs in this state, taxes are a killer. Now, we went through the after 9/11. After 9/11, we went through the big drop in revenue increases, and things were tight. And other states increased taxes during that time frame. We did not. Other states are more flush now because the economy is coming back around, and the tax increases that they enacted back then are producing fairly significant revenue gains. We did not enact tax increases, so we're still facing some difficult times. But do I think government has an obligation to operate efficiently? Yes, absolutely. Do I think the city of Oshkosh is going to fall apart because of what's happening with shared revenue? No, I don't. Do you think government is operating as efficiently as humanly possible in Oshkosh right now?
Do I?
Yes.
No, I don't.
Right.
But is the answer for the strong arm of government from Madison to tell us what to do?
Well,
No, I don't
wait.
think so.
The strong arm. Madison did not send more money in shared revenues because Madison didn't have more money to send in shared revenues. Madison,
What was Madison spending its money on?
K through 12 education.
Well,
Well, speaking of the Oshkosh Common Council and so forth, in one of your last visits there, or maybe it was your last visit, Councilman Esslinger asked
Yes.
you where, if this is so easy,
Yes.
where you thought the budget should be cut. And you said to him that he signed up for the job and you're
That's
not going to
right.
do his work for him. So you still, and you took some flack for that.
Yeah, I still think it.
Okay, because that was going to be my question, is whether or not
still
you
think
still
it.
thought that that was the best response.
Yeah, I mean, he knew. I'm not trying to beat up on Paul.
Right.
I was in the Oshkosh Performs Broadway thing with Paul. I don't think Paul's a bad guy. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. He knew the deal coming in. He knew the situation. He said, I want to try to fix the problem. When you run for election and you know the deal, you're saying, I'm up to fixing the problem.
But I don't think anyone there, Greg, in all honesty, knew that, this property tax levy thing was going to come down the pike and shared revenue was going to be yanked. I don't think he knew that.
Shared revenue wasn't yanked. It just wasn't
Well, it was
increased.
severely cut.
it was cut.
It wasn't severely cut. It's been capped for a while, and there was I think there was a small cut in shared revenue. But you
think we
that.
should get rid of that program, don't you? The shared revenue program. You used to think that, didn't
Actually, here's what I think. If depends on how much money we have, but if we face fiscal constraints, the state constitution mandates that education be provided. The state constitution does not mandate any specific city services. So I think a better public policy answer is you take what you're putting into much of the local government and put it into the mandates for counties and put it into education. So you buy down, in fact, the best thing you can do for education, I mean, we can't do it because we haven't got the cash, but in a perfect world, you take education off the property tax, and then you control that through the state government, and you let cities figure out how to run their own budgets.
All right.
That's the best possible world.
Greg, thank you. Thanks for all your years of service.
Thank you very much.
Tony,
Thank
thanks
you.
to you.
Okay.
And thanks to you at home. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.